I'm Amy, and you're listening to the Creativity Matters Podcast. Today on the Creativity Matters Podcast, starting with what you have. But starting. Here we go.
You're listening to the CMP, a Creativity Matters podcast.
Stories of creative journey and a reminder that creativity matters in whatever form it takes for you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Creativity Matters Podcast. I'm Amy, and this is episode 430. Start where you are. Let's start with a quote. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. That's from Ashe. I wasn't aware of that quote until I decided to see if I could find a quote to fit today's show, which is about exactly that. So I typed into a browser, start where you are quote, and up came all these memes with these words by Ashe. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. These are exactly the words for today's show. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. What is it you want in your creative life? Do you want to be a watercolorist like this artist or that one? Do you want to be a children's book illustrator? Do you want to paint the ordinary and the flat and sometimes whimsical colors of gouache? Do you want to fill a sketchbook with drawings of lemons or pumpkin scones or coffee mugs or people from TV shows? Do you want to make videos? Do you want to write a novel? Do you want to make zines or sketch notes or a graphic novel? Do you want to ... Fill in the blank. I want to. I would like to. Pick one thing you want. And there are probably lots of things you want in your creative life. Lots of things you want to try. Lots of areas or lots of mediums. Lots of projects. Lots of challenges or classes. It might even be that you want more of something or want to be better at something you already do. But for right now, pick one thing that might be a bit more shiny and new to you. Something maybe you've dipped a toe in, something you dabble in, but something that is still just a bit removed. Something you want. Sometimes these things we want are things we carry along. Little someday things. You set them aside just in front of you. You think someday, that's what I'm going to do. That's who I will be creatively. And someday I'll be that person and I'm going to be really good at doing that. Someday. These someday things, or worse, these little things that we somehow resent not being able to claim. And they may be both. They may be someday things and things that we resent slightly that right now we can't do. Think of these things you want more of in your creative life. Who is it you want to be? What is a medium or project you keep thinking you really want to do? Maybe you whisper it quietly to yourself. Or maybe it's a little voice in your head as you scroll through Instagram or YouTube or just walk about your day. A little part of you always thinking, that's what I really want to do. That's the kind of art I really want to make. That's really how I want to be creatively. Maybe you think about it as you walk through a field or around a bend in a tree-lined road, and you wish you could capture that moment. Or maybe you think about it while you're walking through the grocery store or while you're sitting at a park watching kids play. See the goal in your mind. What is that one thing right now? And now think about what is stopping you. Is it time? Is it money? Is it not having the right tools? Is it fear? Is it lack of confidence? Sometimes there are real reasons we can't start something. But sometimes we get caught up in thinking we can't do something because A, we don't have the right things, or B, we are not already skilled. And often it's a combination of those things. The "I'm not good enough" is a particularly problematic line of self-thought, because getting from point A to the end goal is a journey. One of doing and learning by doing. You have to be willing to do the work and accept that you probably won't start out as good as you hope to someday be. Not having the right things, that's a big one. That can seem like a huge hurdle in our heads, and it can become the crutch, the stopping gap, the point at which you say, no, I can't do it because I don't have the right pen. I don't have the right paper. I don't have the right light. I don't have a room of my own. I don't have a table. I don't have a tripod. I don't have this and that. The list can go on, and there are lots of variations. I'm not this, or I'm not that. I can't because. The voices in our heads can be persistent. But all of these are stalling tactics. None of these should be the reason you don't. The reason you don't start, don't try, don't push, don't move forward, don't reach for whatever that thing is, because you owe it to yourself to try. You owe it to yourself to see if that's a real thing, that thing in your head. Is that a real thing for you? Or is it just this idea right now and really you might not even like it? Sometimes you just have to start where you are with what you have, with what you know, and go forward and try. And from there, you can build. You gain experience. You sort out if this is the right thing for you, what you want to do, what you want to be working on and spending your time doing, and you improve. You gain skill. You get better. You make changes. You keep moving forward. And as you make those changes and gain that skill and move forward, you may be able to start adding to what you have. You might be able to justify buying this or that, or making this or that change to how you're doing something. But sometimes to start, you just have to start with what you have, or with the best you can manage, and it may not be perfect. But allowing yourself to start on a shoestring, start cheap and fast and just dive in, head first gives you the chance to play, to test, to explore without fully committing. You get to try on the process, see how it feels by using what you have or what you can assemble easily. You may not know yet if this is going to work, that you're going to enjoy it, that it's going to be what you want to do. But diving in without waiting for the perfect setup and the perfect space puts you in action. Instead of sitting around pining, wanting, waiting, hoping, and recounting again and again all the reasons something can't work, dive in. As you dive, remember to be gentle with yourself. It takes time to get to a point where you're comfortable and where you have a skill set, the skill set for whatever it is. But it is a process, and getting there requires the doing of it. For so many people, that is the missing understanding, that there is a whole lot of doing of it to get to the point that's in your head, or to get to the point of someone whose work you admire. There is a whole lot of doing of it. For most of us, there are no magic keys that allow us to go from having this idea that we want to do this thing and then creating the work that matches what is in our head. For some people, that's the stopping point. Sadly, some people try something once and decide they can't do it. And sometimes they've bought all the stuff. They went for the perfect pen and the perfect paper and the perfect palette, the perfect set of watercolors. They went for all the perfect stuff and gave it one try, and they weren't as good as they hoped to be. And they gave up. They discount the reality that the people they admire may have done thousands of that thing, that those people too started somewhere at one time, that it was a journey. You have to be willing to put in the work. But the first few times you try something are just that. Trying something. Maybe you love it just as you thought you would. Maybe you hate it. It's good to know. Maybe it doesn't relax you. Also good to know. Maybe you don't like the mess. It can be very important. Maybe the results are mediocre, but the spark is there, and you realize, yes, I can do this, and I like it. I might even love it. Where has this been all my life? Well, it's been right there, waiting for you to try. And the more you do it, the better it will be. You have this glistening thread of, I can do this, but it needs to be countered or braided or woven with recognition that probably the very first time you try something won't lead to a magical scenario in which you will be great. You'll be a superstar. You'll have a successful channel. You'll gain lots and lots and thousands of followers. You will make it. In our modern world, why some people go viral and get recognition can sometimes seem very random and maybe puzzling and maybe even unfair. So there are exceptions. There are exceptions to this. You really have to work it story. And yes, maybe you do have untapped genius within. For most of us, even if we have some genius, it doesn't work that way. We don't suddenly become a superstar. We don't suddenly become the channel or the stream. We don't suddenly have a book deal. We don't suddenly sell all of our work just because we finally picked up a pen, a brush, a camera, a video camera, a glue stick, a microphone. There is a gap between a space, a chasm that you have to climb or you have to bridge, a wilderness you have to forge, and that is the process and the journey. And that's what you really need to love. You need to love that, not just the idea of that end point of your fame and glory. For some people, that in-between part ends up not being enjoyable. But that in-between part is the necessary part, the learning ground, the doing, the day-to-day doing. You should enjoy whatever it is you do. And so at the outset, having all the perfect tools might sound like a golden ticket. If you have everything perfect, you're going to be great. You still have to bring you. You have to bring you to it. There's time involved in developing skills, and in most cases, we learn by doing. If you want to draw a house, and you draw the same house 50 times, your 50th house will look much different from the first. It's almost a guaranteed thing. If you do it 50 times, number 50 will look different. It may still not look like what's in your head, but it will look different. House number 25 will also look different from number 1, and probably also different from number 50. But there had to be a number 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 5 to get to those points, to get to 25, to get to 50, to get to 1,000, to get to 1 year, to get to 5 years, to get to this is what I do and who I am, and people know me because of this. And sometimes, trust me, you can get to 400 and something and still not be known. But you do know that there has been a big change from 1 and 25 and 50. And you might still be using exactly the same tools at 400, at 500. The perfect tools are not necessarily the golden ticket. If you are not willing to start at the beginning and to start maybe with meager or humble means, not willing to start until everything is perfect, then you may not ever be able to start. If you are not willing to start because you have a lot of excuses, this isn't good enough, I don't have that yet, my blank, blank, blank won't do this, it won't work, you cut yourself off from the opportunity to find out if you even enjoy what it is. You close the door on the chance to find out if you like the activity, the medium, the time involved, the way it works, the way it makes you feel, the process. You close the window on the chance to find out if it's something you want to do. You turn your back on the chance to grow and develop, to blossom in the process, and you let that little resentful voice continue to exist. I don't have time, I can't do this, that's what I want to do. If you don't go ahead and try with what you have, you just let that voice continue. And that voice may be incredibly wrong anyway. You might simply find out you don't like it. Or you might find out you didn't need the perfect pen, the perfect paper, the perfect app, the perfect software, the software that costs X amount of money every month, when there is a free one that will let you try it. See what you think. Find the low commitment way, the easy way. There's a lot to learn by jumping in and starting. It doesn't mean that you don't still have high standards for yourself, expectations for yourself. It doesn't mean that you are not still detail-oriented, prone to perfectionism, idealistic, any of those things. You may not meet all your hopes and ideals when you jump in, but starting lets you see if this is something you want to invest in. Your time, your money, 2 major things you have to invest. This feels sometimes like a double-edged sword because often the things we do at the beginning are not so good. We've talked about that. But luckily, we don't always realize that. We might think at the moment that what we've done is really good. Great, even. We might be incredibly proud of product A, and then B, and then C, 1, 2, and 3. Our brains and psyches can protect us in that way a little bit. But we still see other examples all around us. There's always this tension. So we have to be able to embrace what we've done for what it is. A starting point. And if we enjoy it enough, and we look at it and love it enough, and we're amazed that we did that, and we love how it feels, then we can go on and get better and better and better. When we are super excited about our early efforts, it's especially good. It's good when that happens because it allows us to keep moving on, even if we know we're not quite where we are hoping to be or are far from where we are hoping to be. Early satisfaction, being hooked by the process and what we create, even when trying on a new creative pursuit, gives us that little push we need to keep going forward. Enjoying the process enough that when we look at what we're doing and think, yeah, wow, I did that. This is the path. I was right. This is where I want to be walking. This is how I want to be using my time. This is a step towards that space I want to be in. That's the best. That's the spark. That's when you keep going, keep on going, keep on keeping on. You grow and develop and stretch out within that space. You give yourself room to explore and you embrace your voice and you keep finding you. You keep pushing at this thing you do. Maybe you inch closer to where you want to be. Maybe you leapfrog there. Maybe you pivot. But you only have that moment and the opportunity for those discoveries and even for those pivots because you started. And as you add new tools or services or apps or equipment or start trying new things when you can, new pens or papers or sketchbooks, maybe you'll find the magic combo, Maybe it's the magic combo right then. Usually magic combos change. And maybe you'll think, see, if only I'd had this on day one, I would have been so much better. It's a dangerous mental game. On day one, you were better off just starting with what you have, I think. Starting with enough. Start, then grow, then keep adding if and when you can. And sometimes you can't. Sometimes you are always going to be in the shoestring group. You might read a summary of how to get started in a certain field and see it broken down into free, medium, and expensive options. And you might have to start out with free, and you might always have to be hovering in that range. That's okay too. You can still create awesome things, even if that is true for you. Yes, there may be perks to some of those other things. And maybe down the road, it will seem worth it. It's not necessarily something you can justify when you want to try something, when you just have this idea. Don't let the quest for the best tool dictate what's possible for you. This actually applies to all of us. This line of thought came up as I was talking to one of my sons this week about something that he wants to do, something that I have really pushed and encouraged both of my kids to do. He's been thinking about it, and he said, I can't because this won't work and I don't have this. And part of me was sad, really sad, that I can't just hand over the magic keys, that I can't afford even a little silver-toned key, that I can't just really blow things open wide and say, here is the perfect setup. There's so many things in the way of that I just can't do it. And I did feel bad. But at the same time, I was listening to him and all I could think was, you just have to start. I could see the danger of the quest, the danger of the myth that you have to have the perfect thing. And they have all kinds of models of people who are super successful who have the perfect thing. But I believe you have to start and see if you like it. And I believe that in many cases you can do that. There are ways to do that with what you probably have or with very minimal investment. As a parent, I could see the danger ahead in not realizing that number 1 may not live up to what number 50 will be, even if you have the perfect tools. And number 1 almost certainly won't be the same quality as the examples you love and admire, as the yardstick that you'll be using to evaluate your work. Listening to him, it was clear that there was this or that, and this might not work, and this equipment might not be the best, and in truth, his equipment's super old. And I felt bad having to say, sometimes you just have to use what you have and start. As I said it, I knew there was something really important there. The conversation didn't really go much farther than that. But it is an important thing to hear and to think about. Again, we want to be able to hand our kids magic keys, even if we don't have any of our own. But when I said the words, sometimes you just have to start with what you have and do it, I heard the truth. Sometimes you just have to start with what you have, because when you really start doing something new, and when deciding to spend money on something is something you really have to think about and consider and make choices about, then you can't necessarily just go out and buy all the things for some brand new venture until you really know if you're going to enjoy it, if it's going to be the right space. I didn't always understand that. My house is full of things that prove I did not understand that. I have gone through all kinds of crafts and hobbies in my life, but there are a lot of kinds of creative pursuits these days that are different. They are more digital. They do not require that you go and buy a whole bunch of art tools. Sometimes you just need to start using what you have and then going from there. Luckily, in a lot of cases, we can try the things that we want without a lot of extra stuff. People just don't do it. We live in such a consumeristic world that people just don't do that. It's more fun to go out and buy all the things and think that's going to suddenly make you whatever it is in your head. You really can probably just start without having all the right or best tools. It's not true with every new craft or hobby, and certainly there are some people should try. For example, if you want to knit, you're going to need a first pair of needles and some yarn. You probably don't need cashmere, and you don't need a whole set, 20 pairs of needles, or a whole set of interchangeable needles. You just need a pair of needles to try it. You might even be able to borrow those. Start with what you have or the basics. You need better lighting? What lights can you move around just to see if this thing will work? And if you didn't have the perfect lighting, would it actually be the end of the world for the project? Sure, by number 100, you probably are going to want to solve that. Will you make it to 100? Will you like it enough to keep doing it? You want to draw, but you don't have a sketchbook? Any paper can work. If you really like it all put together, you can staple it. You can take a needle and thread. There are lots of ways to solve some of these issues, these things that we let our minds tell us are reasons we can't try something. There are many things that you might do or decide to do that you can start really easily with what you have. I think that's always important to remember. The perfect tool doesn't immediately make you a superstar. To translate this to drawing, it is a myth that the perfect pen will suddenly make you an extraordinary artist. No one even agrees on what the perfect pen is. We all know of artists who work with the simplest of materials, the most traditional of materials, and make amazing things, whether that's using a ballpoint or a stick dipped in ink. There are all kinds of ways to do it, and the pen you currently covet may or may not bring about the change that you anticipate. Maybe it will. Sometimes tools can make a difference, but your practice and your continuing to draw with whatever it is that you use makes the most difference. The doing makes the most and biggest difference. I'm not trying to be coy or sideswipe the reality that new tools are cool. I'm happier drawing with a certain size tip than others. And I do love my fountain pens, and I do love ink. And I know these things because I've been able to try different things through the years. But at the outset, learning to draw a face or a mug, that could have been any pen. We start with what we have. The pen I use today is not what I used back then. We start with what we have. And if it turns out we love it, we build it in ways that we can. But the doing is the most important part. The hard work in between A and the goal, that has to be something you love. For your own reasons, whatever those reasons may be. You may love it for a smorgasbord of different reasons that other people would never understand or don't see. That's why I'm sitting here doing this. If you only want the goal but have no interest in the hard work in between, you won't find the satisfaction that you want. We always hope that the journey is one we love, but we won't know that until we start.
I am the art is me.
And that is it for today. That is it for episode 430. Thank you for listening today. Thank you for tuning in. If it is your very first time listening to a Creativity Matters podcast, thank you. Thank you for giving it a try. There are lots of back episodes to pick up and go back and listen to, so I hope you stick around. As always, I'm Amy, and you can reach me at CreativityMattersPodcast@gmail.com. The show notes are on the CreativityMattersPodcast.com website. You can listen in most, but not all, most podcast players, and the show is also available on the website, and I am trying that via YouTube recordings. If you are someone who listens that way, please subscribe at YouTube. I am putting the shows at YouTube and also putting a mix of time-lapse and drawing videos. Sometimes those have podcast-like narration, like little mini podcasts, and sometimes they are just short time lapses. And it is a space that I really am hoping to start building with what I have. So please, it would really help me a lot if you would go and just click subscribe. That's all it takes. The music I play is courtesy of Nikolai Heideless. You can find me at Instagram as OAmyOAmy and as Creativity Matters Podcast. Things like hashtag Illustrate Your Week are running through the Creativity Matters Podcast stream, so please follow there if you are interested in that. I interact with all of you through my own stream, through OAmyOAmy. Keep things a little separate sometimes from the show because I'm still me, and I'm actually a person, a real person. And I would love to connect with you there, share art, talk about art, and be part of a small community there. Small community within the gigantic online space. Thank you to those of you who support the show in any way. Thank you especially to those of you at Patreon, patreon.com/creativitymatters. Your support means a great deal to this show. Until next time, remember that creativity matters in whatever form it takes for you. And don't forget to breathe. Have a good week, everyone.